Good morning. It's September 20th, 2018, and we're all very excited here at the Association of American Law Schools because we're launching Before the JD, a landmark publication that has not been replicated in years and years and years, and we hope you enjoy this little segment. My name is Jeff Allen. I'm the Director of Research here at AALS, and with me is Katie Kempner, who's our data analyst. Before the JD is a project that got its origins several years ago when applications and enrollments to law schools were really dropping at a precipitous rate, and there were a lot of questions about why is this happening? How can it be stopped? What's the next step? Well, AALS and its leadership really couldn't answer those questions, but what they could answer were questions about who are these students, who are future graduate professional schools and students in general, and who are future law students. And so that was really the origins of Before the JD, and we're so excited that we're finally here today.
So to say a little bit more about the process in getting the project up and going, once the project research questions were finalized and identified, AALS contracted with Gallup, who we knew had sort of the capacity and name recognition that we needed to field a survey on the scale that we wanted it to be. So after what we think is a very successful recruitment process, we ended with 25 colleges and universities and 44 law schools who agreed to share their students' information for us to survey. We sent the survey out to over 200,000 undergraduate students and I think about 10,000 first-year law students. And in the end, over 22,000 undergrads answered our survey, which far exceeded our goals and expectations, and 2,700 first-year law students responded to the survey. So we were thrilled that we really exceeded our expectations, and what the result of that means is that we have a very unique, sort of the first of its kind database that has a lot of really critical information in terms of what undergraduates are thinking about their choices to go on to graduate or professional school.
And Katie, you and I both remember the challenges that large data set presented itself. When we first conceptualized this project, we thought we'd get maybe 1,000 respondents from law schools and maybe 3,000 from undergraduate students. That we thought was going to be plenty, but with such a huge data set, we were really challenged with finding just the right bits of information that we thought would be useful for the legal education community in general. And I think and I hope that we accomplished that. So.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo your excitement we think we successfully chose the most important points to include in the report. And just to transition to share a little bit more about the findings, something that I was really interested in finding out once we had all our data back was just where did the JD fall in terms of the many graduate and professional degrees that undergraduates today might be thinking about pursuing. And we learned that of our students who identified themselves as likely to go on to another degree, only about 15% were considering a JD. And I don't know that was higher or lower than what I anticipated, but I think it is important for people with a stake in sort of the pipeline to law school, that's sort of the percentage of students we were looking at that said, I'm thinking about a JD either alone or in along with other advanced degrees.
Yeah, and I've been studying graduate and professional education for over a dozen years, and I never really had an opportunity to really focus on JDs in particular, and so that was a bit of a surprising bit of information to me. And this report and this data actually gave me professionally, and I think our community as well, a sense of looking at who are these students. And so the report, I think, does a nice job of explaining just basic descriptions of who are students considering law school with respect to their gender, some of their academic achievements. We have SAT scores, for example, race, ethnicity, and parental education. And parental education was actually one that I thought was particularly interesting. Maybe it's because I am reading about it so much these days, but our survey found that literally half of students who are considering law school have a parent who has at least one parent with an advanced degree, and that's a pretty large number, and that's considerably higher than the national average for sure. And I think that poses both challenges but also opportunities for law schools going forward.
Yeah, to pick back up on the same theme of parental education, another thing we asked undergraduates about is their sources of advice. Where are they going and who are they turning to get information about law school and any other degree they might be considering? And what we found that I think was really striking is in terms of parental education, we did see a relationship between students whose parents have an advanced degree were more likely to identify family as a source of advice. And what we saw was sort of a stair-step effect. So the most likely students to name family as a source were those whose parents have advanced degrees. The next group was students whose parents have a bachelor's. And then first generation students we found were least likely to identify family as a source of advice. So that made me think about the channels of information that undergraduates are using. And I think, again, it does present an opportunity because the university is certainly a source of advice for going on to graduate school as well.
And just think about the information overload that must be happening right now with students who are thinking about college, thinking about graduate school, thinking about law school. I really hope that this data that we have, is able to shed a little bit of light and help folks at these institutions, better communicate with potential and future students. Before we go, we should probably also talk a little bit about first-year law students. Up until this point, we've just been talking about undergraduate students. But we did a survey of some first-year law students at 44 different law schools, and we asked a whole host of questions that were very similar to the undergraduate population. But one of those in particular was, when do first-year law students recall first considering going to law school? And I remember when this project started, we did a couple of focus groups here in the Washington, D.C. area, and we heard firsthand from some first-year law students that they had been thinking about this as far back as high school and college. And I kind of thought to myself then, no, that's just our sampling bias or something with our focus group. But in terms of our findings, we found, sure enough, over half, if I recall correctly, of first-year law students said they had been thinking about law school from the point that they were in college, and a third or so had been thinking as far back as high school. So again, for law schools, this sends a lot of really interesting messages that they might want to consider when reaching out to potential law students.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting point as well, and sort of thinking beyond the point of when they first consider it. What are the factors that could intervene in the interim in terms of motivating them to choose that track and pursue it, or the things that might prevent them from actually pursuing a JD or another advanced degree? And one of the things that really stuck out to me and I thought was really interesting, we asked both undergraduates and first-year law students both about factors, as I said, that might motivate them to go, but also about barriers. And both groups, so the undergraduates who are potential law students and the first-year law students who are already in law school, identified cost and work-life balance as the two barriers, and those far exceeded other barriers we gave them to choose from. And I think what that shows, it's not necessarily a negative thing. I think what it shows is that the important work that's been going on in the legal education community to understand the debt better and understand financial aid to serve students better should continue to happen, and that universities and colleges who are advising undergrads, but also law schools, can really work to address those two barriers primarily. That's what they're looking to target. So I think we can see it as an opportunity.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, I know we could keep talking about this for hours and hours and hours, but we only have so much time, and we encourage anyone who's watching this video to please watch our website, which is www.aals.org, for more information in the coming weeks and coming months and years ahead.